Welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. Pour a glass, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast.
On today's episode, we have with us female entrepreneur Effie Panagopoulos. Effie is the founder of Kleos Mastiha, a wonderful Greek spirit with unique flavors and even some healthy attributes to boot.
So grab a glass and join us while we get to know Effie.
Hey Effie, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you and actually an honor. We always pride ourselves on bringing on cool and interesting guests, and I have to say that you are by far one of the most interesting guests that we've had on our show.
That's welcome. A euphemism. Interesting.
And for those that are listening, Effie Panagopoulos from Kleos. We've also had some history together, but I just want to turn it over to Effie and welcome you and thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
Well, we both went to Boston College and Boston Latin too. No, did you go to Latin school?
I didn't. I missed the boat on Latin, but Boston College, yes. But we
fellow Eagles.
Yes, it's been a while though. I gotta say, not to kind of like date me, but yes, it's been a while. But yes, it's been that far back that we've actually had some interaction together. But since then, a lot of cool things have happened since Boston College.
Do you guys remember first meeting or?
I think we've always been around the
church.
Same. Yeah, as
church.
Obviously, coincidentally, we're both Greek Americans. We both grew up in the same.
Ayos Nectarios.
Right, Rosendale.
Mm-hmm.
We've obviously been around the same networks through maybe Goya.
Yep.
Maybe church events, festivals.
Okay, so you have a long personal history
Greek
together.
Nights. Right, yeah.
What about industry specific? When did you guys start?
Well, I'll let Effie kind of take over and tell us, where you started.
Well, I mean, at BC, I majored in French. And I studied Spanish and Italian. And then I ended up my senior year at BC getting certified as a personal trainer, much to the dismay of my Greek parents, because I had been on academic scholarship at BC. And I had lofty aspirations of being a UN ambassador.
Oh, wow.
And so, working at a gym wasn't exactly like fulfilling my parents' dreams. I ended up teaching high school Spanish at Dedham High.
Okay.
And working for Univision, which is the Spanish TV network, in the Boston affiliate office. And I was translating. Cool. Yeah, I was translating commercials and copywriting. So I wrote commercials in Spanish.
So you're fluent in Spanish, right?
Quasi-fluent. I'm pretty good.
You want to do this in Spanish?
Podemos hablar en español también si quieren.
For our Spanish listeners.
So I can do my whole Kleos spiel in Spanish, actually.
Nice.
It definitely helps me with sales, that's for sure. But long story short, I really hated 9 to 5. And I ended up doing a lot of liquor tastings and promotions in my early 20s. And then I also bartended at Mary Ann's when I was at BC, which was my first kind of bartending gig. I bartended at Rogies, a couple of these divey BC bars. It's funny, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My father was a GM of a fine dining restaurant called Franco's in Norwood. So my dad was hospitality, and my mother was the nerd in the family. Oh. So I'm kind of 50-50. But I just loved doing all the liquor events. Just in my head, it was this is so easy, and it's natural. I'm a social person. In high school, I wasn't allowed to do anything. So after college, it was running amok in the city of Boston, nightclub promoting, and doing all these liquor tastings and events. I did it for every brand under the sun. Stoli, Kahlua, Midori, Cavassier, Maker's Mark, Grey Goose when they first launched. I was a Jaegerette. So this was kind of my nighttime gigs. And I was getting, $25, $30 an hour, which...
Back then.
20 years ago, which was good side cash.
Absolutely.
Compared to my $30,000 a year teacher salary. So, I was I want to get a job in this industry, and I kept sending resumes over and over again. It wasn't until I was living in San Diego that I finally got 3-4 job offers all at once. And 2 of them were in San Francisco. One was with Bacardi and one would have been with Brown-Forman. And I took the Bacardi job because I liked the brands better. So that was kind of like my first official market manager job in the industry. And I joke, I moved to San Francisco, which is a, kind of premier dining and cocktail and wine city in the U.S., right? And I moved there at 26, drinking Stoli Vanilla and Diet Coke. That was my drink.
That was a thing back then.
Yeah. Totally. And I remember going to my first account call, and I went into this bar. It's called the Starlight Room. It was a rooftop hotel bar. Very swanky, very old school. And the first guy that I did a sales call with, his name was Marco Dionysus. Not Greek, oddly enough, right?
Dionysus.
Right.
Wow.
What a stage name for a bartender. And he's like world-class mixologist. Love this guy. But I remember having to sell in a Bombay Sapphire program, and he quizzed me on what botanicals were in Bombay Sapphire that weren't in Bombay Original, and I missed one. And he then asked me kind of like, well, what do I drink? And I'm like, listen, brutally honest, I literally just picked up a Boston bartending book and I stole Tony Abou-Ghanim's menu from the Bellagio, and that's about all I know about cocktails. I was like, I drink Stoli Vanilla and Diet Coke. And he goes, oh, that's called a supermodel. And I just remember at the time thinking like, wow, this guy could have totally just made fun of me or been condescending to me for my unsophisticated drink choice. But he gave a name to the cocktail that made it sound like I was actually having something legitimate. And then kind of took me through a bunch of classic gin cocktails, a French 75. I remember a Bramble, which is like, even still today, one of my top 10 cocktails is a Bramble. I love this drink.
Can you tell us real quickly what a Bramble is?
Yeah, it's a classic gin cocktail created by this guy, Dick Bradsell, who was a bartender from the 80s in London, who also created the espresso martini.
Okay.
And it's gin, creme de mure, which is a blackberry liqueur, lemon juice, and that's it, actually.
Wow. Sounds pretty flavorful.
It's a crushed ice cocktail, and I think this is why this is still one of my favorites, because it's like an adult slushy. If you go on the Kleos website too, you'll see a lot of the drinks that I have for Kleos are crushed ice cocktails, because it's like it's an adult snow cone,
Nice.
Well, you mentioned Kleos. We're gonna get into that obviously, but was there like a big span before Kleos came about, or?
Oh yeah. It was a 9-year Sisyphean journey to get this brand off the ground. It's a long story. I don't know if we have enough time for this.
Give us the
beginning part, and then we'll
give us the cliff notes of how you got from there to where you are.
So I'm in San Francisco. I'm working on Bacardi, and I get connected to Remy, and they were hiring a brand ambassador for Metaxa. So this is when I maybe for the first time was viewed in a positive sense by my parents for working in the liquor industry. I remember telling my dad, like, I was interviewing, he's like, oh, Effie Mia, you have to get that job, and and that was like, took me 6 months to get that job. Many interviews.
Oh wow.
Yeah, many interviews with Greece, with Remy corporate in the US, with Remy in Paris. I was the first and only ever brand ambassador for Metaxa in the United States. The only other person was Spiros Metaxas that had been coming over in the 80s from the family. So, and they have not hired anyone ever since. Sad, very sad.
So you claim the title to have it. So you'll be the only ambassador, right?
And that was the job that brought me back to Greece after, like, I pretty much 16 years old had been my last trip to Greece. And then fast forward, now I'm 26, 27, I get this job with Metaxa, and I go back to Greece after not having gone for 10 years. And I saw a TGI Fridays, and I was like, what the hell has happened to our country?
So popular in
Greece.
I
know. But I literally was like, what the hell has happened to our country? This is like not Greece anymore, But that job brought me back to Greece. I'm in Mykonos, summer 2008. and everyone's doing shots of Mastiha at this beach bar, Namos, which you guys probably know.
Definitely.
And that was kind of my eureka moment. I remember I was with a friend of mine, his name's Izzy Kutiel. You might know him, Ira. He's a music producer in Greece. And I looked at him and I was like, I've done a sato ipovrigio, like that we had when we were kids. You know, he's like, that's exactly what it is. I'm like, they make alcohol from that stuff? Because I didn't even know that Mastiha was this superfood that's a resin from a tree that comes from one island. I just knew vanilla. I knew ipovrigio. I knew that flavor. So I had this really kind of strong memory that was evoked when I first tasted Mastiha, and it was literally like I'm in the Choryo in Tripoli with my yaya having like the little spoon dessert. And
for the people who wouldn't know or haven't tried it yet, like how would you describe that?
So how would I describe ipovrigio or Mastiha liqueur?
How about both?
Yeah.
So, all right, ipovrigio is kind of, for Americans, it's kind of like fluff. It looks like fluff. You swirl it around in water and suck on it like a lollipop. The taste is really confectionery. It's very candy-like. So the liqueur is not as much so, but most of them in Greece are pretty sweet. Kleos is not. But as far as Mastiha goes, the smell I always describe as something akin to eucalyptus or sage. So it's piney, it's tree-like. It comes from a tree. And the taste, most common tasting notes for Kleos are going to be cucumber, sweet tea, gin. People say quite often. Cocktail bartenders say carrots all the time, which initially I was kind of like, I don't know where these people are getting carrots. And then more and more I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Because then I started to get a lot of root vegetables. People would say turnips, parsnips. And I'm talking, these are more of the geeky palates that would say things like this. But literally last week I'm doing a tasting in Whole Foods and there was a woman who, she was not a sommelier and she literally was like, oh my God, this tastes like carrot juice. And I'm like, there it goes again. People say it all the time.
Yeah,
so if you think about it, right, because it's minerally, it's kind of sweet, it's kind of herbaceous.
Yes, all that
so you think of, carrots are kind of that, right? They come from the earth, root vegetable.
Yeah.
Little sweet, right?
Oh, that makes me want to try some.
So, I got a full bottle we can crack open right now. It's almost 5. Happy hour.
Every hour's happy hour at the early wine club. But
and there's your tagline. Yes.
So going back to what you're saying as far as, that pivotal moment, you're in Mykonos, you're, just having a great time and you're just observing people having shots of Mastiha and you're saying to yourself, why
the hell isn't this in the United States is what I'm saying to myself, because here I am working on ouzo, which, most people do not like, most Americans do not like. Right. And then metaxa, which I love metaxa, I will always love metaxa, but it was a hard sell,
Yeah,
I mean, why. Well, I ended up I had to do a shop program for metaxa, meaning this was like Paris wanted me to create some kind of big idea to get people drinking shots of metaxa, and I ended up finding this ritual. It was out of a bar in Colorado where people would drink Metaxa 5-star, chase it with an orange that's half dipped in sugar, half dipped in coffee grounds. And I know it sounds kind of nasty, but it actually tastes really good.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to sell in this program in Astoria. And I had these, younger Greek bars, and like, bro, the last time I had metaxa was at my cousin's funeral, and I'm like, what? And I literally was, I'm telling Greece, I'm telling Paris, Houston, we have a problem here. Your brand is associated with people dying. This is going to be really hard for me to make it cool again in the Greek community, at least, So I actually ended up kind of saying, look, we need to focus on metaxa as a mixology brand and look at American bartenders that are doing really cool drinks, because I don't think this is a battle I can win with the Greek community. You know what I mean?
I can see why.
Yeah. So this is all my background, and then I'm in Greece and I'm kind of like, wait a minute, this stuff tastes awesome and nobody knows about it. I want to bring this stuff to the U.S. So that was kind of the whole genesis of Kleos. I ended up getting introduced to the guy who owns Kleos, which is the biggest Mastiha brand in Greece. I consulted for him for about 8 months. I helped him come over to the U.S., find importation, distribution, all that. And it didn't work out financially for us to work together. And so we kind of parted ways. And I was still so in love with Mastiha that I was like, I just honestly felt like it was my fate and my destiny to bring this to the U.S. and to be the one to make it happen. I mean, besides the fact that it's a Greek product that has all this authenticity and all this history, and it tastes so delicious and it's phenomenal as a cocktail ingredient, it also is made from a superfood. And I'm a complete fitness junkie. Anyone that follows me on Instagram or Facebook knows this.
Right.
And so, there's a category of liqueurs called digestifs, right? Mm-hmm. And the difference between Kleos and other digestifs is that Mastiha actually has over hundreds of modern published medical studies that prove that it kills H. pylori, which is the bacteria that causes peptic ulcers and acid reflux.
Oh, wow.
And the healing properties are retained in liquor form for the digestive system. So you drink about 2 ounces of Kleos, like you will burp up a little bit. And I say this to people sometimes, they're like, do you really think you should be saying that? Is that really a selling point? And I'm like,
I think so.
Yeah. Like everyone today is obsessed with, gut health and probiotics and this and that. And it's kind of like, we've got this thing, it's a natural remedy for Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, lowers insulin levels for diabetics. It's like a cure-all, do-all,
So not only is this enjoyable and delicious, but it's also...
You get the residual health benefits. And I'm not saying that drinking alcohol is good for your health, but in the same way that you can drink red wine and have antioxidants, meaning there is a residual health benefit, right? I'm not going to...
Within moderation.
Exactly. I'm not going to push alcohol as a health product. Brutally honest, my father was an alcoholic and passed away from alcoholism, so it's the last thing that I would do. But if you're going to imbibe, it is a great choice if you are concerned with health and wellness. And also, like, I've been doing tastings now. Obviously, it's a holiday season. I keep telling people, this is the best thing you can drink with those heavy holiday meals,
True.
It literally removes all the gas from the stomach and aids in digestion. Like, why wouldn't you?
That's really cool.
It is.
So, I think that for probably the majority of our listening audience, Mastiha is something that probably is unknown to most of our listeners. And I think it may be very basic breakdown of what it is, I think would help them understand what it is that Mastiha is.
Okay, so Mastiha is a resin or a sap from a tree that is indigenous to the Greek island of Chios. This tree is called the Skinos tree. It literally grows only in 24 villages in the southern part of the island of Chios.
Wow.
So it's what you call a PDO. It's a protected designation of origin ingredient. Literally in the entire planet only comes from the southern part of Chios.
You can't take roots of that tree and grow it somewhere else.
So, first of all, the tree is replanted from a branch, not from any seed or root. Second of all, they have tried to plant the trees in the northern part of the island, and the trees grow, but they don't produce the same aromatic sap.
Interesting.
That also has all these healing properties. Like, Turkey has been trying to do it for years.
Nothing.
No. So
I wonder what it is about that specific area,
soil.
that specific island.
So there's like the scientific reasons, and then there's the folklore reasons.
Folklore is always more fun.
I think the folklore reason is a bit more cool. So there's a story about Agios Isidoros, Saint Isidore, who was the patron saint of Chios, and he was a Christian in non-Christian times, and converted 2 working girls to Christianity, and so had the religious, folk in power up in arrears over this. And so they killed him. They punished, and they basically took his body, dragged him around with a horse chariot, and kind of beat him bloody and left his body on the side of a road in a field of Mastiha trees.
Wow.
And so the story goes that the Mastiha trees cried in sympathy for the dying saint.
Oh, wow.
And the saint looked up at the trees and said, "May your tears be a medicine for the world," which is why they say that Mastiha has all these healing properties, and that particular part of Chios is like blessed by the saint. And honestly, like if you've ever been to Chios, you feel it. You feel the energy. The first time I went down there, I'm never going to forget, and it was at nighttime, and I ended up in this little choreo called Nenita, which is one of the 24 Mastiha choria. I started crying uncontrollably, and it came out of nowhere. It happens to me too when I go to like the ancient sites in Greece, when I'm in the Acropolis or anything. I always get very moved because I feel like you can feel that like real spiritual energy, you know? Wow. And the scientific reasons, you're kind of like, okay, terroir, the fact that the villages are, their position on the island, they're shielded by wind, like where they are in relation to mountains. And so wind can ruin a harvest, rain can ruin a harvest, and it's very dry there and like pretty hot in the summertime when the harvest happens. And then they also say eugenics. So again, a Greek word, you meaning good and genics meaning genetics. So the ancient Heians over time were always picking the best trees to recultivate and propagate. So they almost created kind of like a super species of these trees because they were constantly replanting the best trees that were giving them the most mastiha. And then they say the systematic cultivation over time. So this is something that literally really only the Chiotes have this know-how. And what else is, I think, so beautiful and why I so fell in love with Mastiha is it literally has been passed down from family to family, generation to generation. Like no big company has come in to buy up a bunch of trees. It's a self-governing collaborative called the Kleos Mastiha Growers Association. The association has been in existence since the 50s. I mean, wow, and as Greeks, we should be proud that there's a collaborative that has existed since the 1950s. Exactly, because we Greeks are probably the worst in terms of getting along together, right? So, like, each choreo has their own president in the NOC, and they're wonderful people, man. But it really is a magical thing. And I kind of was like, wait a minute, you know, everyone in the States is obsessed with tequila and agave, and now all these bartenders are going to distilleries in Oaxaca and in Jalisco and, you know, cutting agaves and pinas. And I'm like, whoa, we got this thing in Greece that's been going on for 3,000 years. And nobody knows about it, and I want to share this with the world.
God bless you for doing that.
You know?
Yeah. And how hard is it for you? I mean, you're Greek, but you're American, and you went over there and you want to take this product, which only grows in this one little area, and put it in a product that you created and bring it over. Isn't that like a difficult thing to do?
It was very difficult. That's why it took me 9 years to get it off the ground.
Oh, wow. That's dedication.
More so because I had trouble, you know, as kind of a woman raising money.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a woman, and you're like, what is the background? You were telling me earlier. She's like the only woman that's...
You're the first Greek woman to start a spirit brand out of Greece.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's funny. When I was kind of doing the diligence on that fact, there are a number of wines in Greece that are, you know, female producers, but even on the wine side, it's all family.
Handed
it's all
down.
From the...
So
yes,
legit,
it's all family. So
Effie's the first.
There's no brands that have been self-started by any female in Greece, you know?
That's huge.
Listen, I'm proud of that. Not for bragging rights, but more so because we're like 50 years behind in Greece, you know, in terms of feminism, the women's movement, and the economy's in the toilet. And, you know, I have a little cousin, and I remember her before she was going to college, like, oh, I want to be a businesswoman like you. And I'm like, do it.
Right.
Be a business major, because she was on the fence of, should she go teacher or business? And I said, don't do the safe thing, you know? And of course she ended up studying education because there is this fear and there is this general kind of role that women play in Greece. And, you know, the role models in Greece are people like Eleni Menegaki, who's a TV presenter,
Right.
or whatever actress, or whatever singer, like Anna Visi. And I'm not taking away anything from any of these women, like they're powerhouses, but there are not role models and mentors that are female entrepreneurs, in Greece. So I hope I can inspire other women to kind of make the jump, And then Greeks overall as well. I feel like there has been a kind of low morale due to the crisis that's kind of really damaged the youth in the country and the whole brain drain, and a lack of belief in our own country. And for me, Kleos represents so many things, and it also represents kind of like a lost Greek pride. The word Kleos is an ancient Greek word. It means fame or glory attained through good deeds and hard work.
There you go.
So the hashtag I use is earn your Kleos, and in kind of an allegorical way, I'm trying to earn Greece its Kleos back when it comes to the world of spirits, because what we are known for is ouzo and retsina and maybe metaxa, and we are nowhere on a back bar. Go into any bar in Boston, you'll see Kleos now, but there's nothing else that's Greek,
I
so
agree now that you mentioned that.
I feel like I'm trying to earn Greece its place back on the bar and in a global fashion,
Good
right?
for you.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, being in the industry and seeing what's out there in the Greek world of spirits and beverages, I don't think there's anyone out there doing what you're doing. And I have to say, I commend you for that, because listening to you and understanding that, being a part of it as well myself, like the inner works or the behind the scenes is intense, and it's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of risk, commitments and so forth that, when you're actually pouring that finished product into your glass and you're sipping on it, enjoying it, just be aware that, that enjoyment comes from a lot of like hard work, sweat and dedication. And then, so Effie, moving forward, I mean, you said it took 9 years, to put this baby, as we can refer to as your baby, right? Put this actually on the ground, and now it's actually in the U.S. market, and you're taking it city by city, and you've done, in my opinion, a great job in the local market of Boston, but beyond Boston, you're also in other markets.
Yeah, I'm in New York, and that's where I just moved back to New York. I launched Boston first for a few reasons. Number one, to kind of like get the hometown love, which actually I forgot how cold and rough Bostonians can be in general, because I came back as a nobody, I was like queen bee in my early 20s, and I come back 20 years later and, nobody knows me. So I may as well been moving to a completely new city and state, because I pretty much was just cold calling, knocking on doors, trying to get all the hipster mixologists to talk to me and give me an appointment. But I also, as entrepreneurs do, I had to like put all my stuff in storage in Miami, and I crashed with my mom last year, which was, psychologically challenging for sure.
It's part of the experience.
I remember getting the press in Vogue and my mother just being like, "Ne, kada nisa aksija na φτιάξεις το κρεβάτι σου."
Translate that for non-Greeks.
For the American listeners, my mother was like, "Yeah, okay, you still can't even make your bed, So
classic Greek mom.
Totally. The Greek. Let me tell you, if there's anything that prepares you for entrepreneurship, it is Greek tough love. If you can get through tough Greek parents, you can get through anything. So that was part of the entrepreneurial spirit. I think with the Greek community, it's like in our blood, right? We're independent people. We hate authority. We don't pay taxes.
Sure.
So it's kind of like this thing, right? But when you look at the Greek community, supposedly, statistically, we are the most successful immigrant community in the United States. That's what I've heard before. It's some different...
And we're number one in education.
Yeah, by degree. Yeah. We hold the most degrees by degree.
Yes. The most educated ethnicity.
Sometimes I wonder about that.
I don't, because have you ever heard any single Greek ever not be pushing school like crazy?
It's true. I feel like even if you are from the village, it's like there's such a premium placed on education in the Greek community.
Yeah.
So we've got that natural entrepreneurial spirit. And then, in my case, my dad loved telling the story of coming over with $20 in his pocket.
Yeah.
Back
Classic.
They all
back
had
in
$20 in their pocket.
back in the
And it snowed a lot
Right.
in Greece when they were little.
Right.
Because they used to walk barefoot.
Yes, all of
And they
that.
had to walk 10 miles to go to school.
All of that.
And meanwhile, when I went to the village, the school was down the street.
Right. uphill both ways.
But anyway,
man.
but
Well, look, I did not grow up privileged by any stretch of the imagination, okay? And my parents let us know that, and it was, and my parents had an arranged marriage, so there was like friction in the household as well. And I just always remember thinking as a kid, like, I am not gonna have kids and let them feel this, that like, oh, you can't go on the ski trip, or you can't do this and you can't do that.
yeah.
So a big part of my drive was also kind of like, well, they came over here to have a better life, and I'm going to have an even better life than them,
Good for you.
And, I definitely think it comes with being kind of a first-generation Greek-American. I mean, look, I'm sitting in the room with you two. Like, you're both perfect examples of that.
We are, I
think.
But no. So
Both work for yourselves, too.
yeah, the whole working
It's not
for
a
yourself thing.
coincidence.
Maybe it's like it's maybe we look at it as a cool thing to work for yourself, but it doesn't always is the best thing, because you have so many things that are on your shoulders. You have all this pressure, but like you said,
That's the entrepreneurial
right.
spirit.
Even though you constantly
the
have
goods
your
and the
ups and
bads.
downs. Yeah. I mean, I think we're blessed that we're in this position. I guess we can say.
So
right?
if any of these listeners are out and about in Boston, are there any good spots for them to try this out?
Yeah, especially right now, because I'm doing a charity initiative. It's called the Earn Your Kleos initiative for the holiday season. So we've got about 12 bars that signed up, and they are committing $1 from every cocktail to the Phoenix House, which is a women's shelter. So
Is all this listed on your website?
no, not the initiative, but we're talking about it on Instagram.
Okay.
But
Can you give out your website and
Yeah,
your
it's-
Instagram handle?
Yep, it's drinkkleos.com, and that's 2 Ks, and then it's at drinkkleos on Instagram. But some of the bars participating are Back Bar in Somerville,
Oh yeah.
Daddy Jones also in
Yeah.
Somerville.
Another female Greek entrepreneur.
Yeah, Dimitra Sorolina in Back Bay, kind of more high-end Italian restaurant. Aria in the North End.
Our good friend Massimo, shout out to him.
Yeah. Well, he's married to a Greek girl, so I think
There's
he
always
brought
some
he
Greek
brought
connection.
he brought Kleos in for that reason.
There you go.
Why am I blanking on the accounts right now? A4Cade as well,
Oh, yeah.
which is really cool, like arcade bar. Blossom Bar in Brookline, which is fabulous cocktail bar. I can't.
So you're in a lot
I
of
can't.
cool spots.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I have Kleos in a lot of really
And then
good
if
bars
you're
and restaurants.
If you're in Massachusetts, you could get it delivered.
You can order, right?
You can get it on GreekWinesDelivered.com.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Foti.
My pleasure.
And he ships all over the state, flat rate shipping. You can even order 6 bottles and pay the same shipping.
Correct.
And then I have it in all the Cappies, all the Blanchards,
Oh, okay, so they have this access.
Ball Square Liquors in Somerville, Needham Center Fine Wine. There's a good amount of off-premise liquor stores. And
it's-
that's all also on my website. There's a where to buy link on the Kleos website. You can see
Perfect.
all the stores there.
So it's pretty accessible, which is key, because unfortunately, with a lot of products coming from Greece, especially in the liquor side of it, a lot of brands that are great and a lot of products that are great aren't as accessible, but Kleos is.
Yeah.
We've all these different retail outlets, cocktail bars, restaurants, and now even ordering it directly online makes Kleos easy for you to get it to your home, or actually you can even ship it as a gift, right?
And it
Yep.
makes a really great gift because it's in a super cool bottle with a super cool cap on it.
Definitely, you'll see a lot of images on our social
Yeah,
media,
we'll post.
and we'll post that as well.
So, before we wrap up, did you want to say?
No, I was just saying the bottle looks kind of like a Greek column.
Yeah,
That was the inspiration.
It's
for
really,
it.
really cool. It's like worth having just just for the
And
bottle
then
itself.
It's a beautiful showpiece for the home bar.
And what's interesting is the logo.
The eye.
The evil eye.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I really like the evil eye as a logo, because not only is it very Greek, but it's very multicultural. You know, in Italy they call it malocchio. In Mexico they call it malo ojo, and it's very, you know, predominant as well in Israel, Lebanon, Turkey.
Oh, wow.
So it's just something that's very multicultural, and the evil eye is trending so much in fashion right now, in
Yeah.
jewelry and clothing,
You see.
that I really, again, like my goal to create a global brand, I like that a lot as an icon for the brand. And at the end of the day, the evil eye protects you from negative energy, right? So it's good luck
Nice.
to have it in your house.
It's a good idea. So you said global brand. Is that the future of Kleos? Is that what you're working towards?
That is the goal. I'm in it to win it. I gave up my baby making years to do this thing, so absolutely. Yep.
That is an
Hope
awesome.
5 years from now we can do another podcast when I'm chilling on a yacht in Mykonos.
Hopefully,
That would be very
hopefully,
nice.
hopefully we don't have to wait 5 years for the next, the next segment with you. Because
Yeah, but you know what?
obviously-
I mean, the story itself is, I mean, that sells itself. It's like, the more I hear about it,
the more reason you want it.
Yeah, and the more I know about what's going on in the world, it's like, yeah, this is like something that people will really want.
Sustainable, fair
Exactly.
trade,
Yes.
organic. People always ask, well, if it's, you know, in such limited supply, how the hell are you going to make a global brand? I've vetted the formula to a certain amount of cases. I'm not going to say how many.
Yep.
But I have no issue continuing with this formula to achieve the business plan that I want. The thing about Mastiha is a little goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I use both the Mastiha resin and Mastiha essential oil to make Kleos, which virtually no other brands do in Greece. So I actually use a good amount of Mastiha to make Kleos. But like I said, a little goes a long way. And the majority of brands, now one thing to really look out for is the stamp from the Growers Association. When I started this project, there were about 10 brands of Mastiha on the market. There's now over 50. And buyer beware, because there's a lot of artificial Mastiha running rampant on the market. And if there is not a stamp from the Kleos Mastiha Growers Association,
Which is
you cannot be sure that you're getting real, what's called PDO Kleos Mastiha.
all right, so keep that in mind. Look
Yeah,
for the
that's
stamp.
good to know.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you pointed that out.
So these bottles, in one way or another, in the future, may be like worth a lot of money too.
We'll see. Supply and demand, right?
Exactly.
Fountain of youth, right here.
So go out and get all your bottles right now, before they go up in price. But it's such a cool idea. It's such a cool bottle, and it's such a cool story. I thought I knew the story.
Well, another thing I should probably throw in is not only am I the first Greek woman to start a liquor brand, I also work with Greece's first female distiller.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's 100% made by women. Her name's Marousa Tsahaki, and she's over at Isidoros Arvanitis, which is on the island of Lesbos. 2 women, Lesbos, ha ha ha. So she also makes ouzo plomari, which is Greece's #1
that's-
ouzo. And for an ouzo, it's my favorite.
I
Although I
agree.
like Varvayani too, because I like
Actually,
the rough
I
stuff.
think anything that comes from Plomari is really
Yeah,
good.
no, Lesbos literally has the best distilleries in Greece
Hands down.
and some of the best spirits, I think, you know, in terms of the producers there. And obviously all the good, what we call the sweet anise, it grows in Lesbos. So that's kind of where ouzo, it's the birthplace of ouzo, you know?
Oh wow.
Well,
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
we want to thank you, Effie
being with
Panagopoulos,
us.
founder of Kleos.
Website
Mastiha.
is
DrinkCleos.com,
Instagram,
at DrinkCleos.
and you could go out in a bunch of places in Boston, find out where to buy on our website, and you could order online. Highly recommended.
Excellent, and probably you might bump into this fascinating female entrepreneur at one of the tastings. Hopefully, we know you're in New York, but hopefully when you're in Boston, make sure you say hello to us and her, and make sure that you pick up a bottle on your next visit to your local retail shop.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you.